I'm what you'd call a meticulous planner. At 34, as a software developer who's been colorblind since birth, I've learned to adapt by being extremely detail-oriented, ensuring every aspect of my code is double-checked and foolproof. It's been challenging, sure, especially when designing user interfaces that clients scrutinize for visual appeal, but my precision with functionality and logic usually compensates. At least it had until recently. My approach had always been to foster open communication with colleagues, clarifying any uncertainties to make up for what I might miss visually. However, this trust recently shattered, leaving me questioning my judgment and even my generosity. It began 6 months ago when I joined a thriving tech firm in downtown Chicago. The team welcomed me warmly, particularly Jake, a senior developer with charisma that could charm paint off the walls. He seemed supportive, often dropping by my desk to discuss projects, offering tips on navigating office politics, and suggesting lunch spots. Yet beneath his surface-level kindness, there lurked a subtle competitiveness I initially dismissed. The project that sparked everything was a major software release for a high-profile client. It demanded meticulous execution, rigorous debugging, comprehensive documentation, and painstaking detail in optimizing every line of code. I spent weeks perfecting the project, checking each function multiple times, triple verifying algorithms, and collaborating closely with testers to ensure reliability. Jake contributed some initial architecture suggestions, but when the heavy lifting started, long hours stretching into nights, I found myself mostly alone. When presentation day arrived, exhaustion clung to me like a second skin, but pride pulsed through me. I knew every inch of that software, understood the logic behind every decision I'd made. Yet during our team's meeting with upper management, Jake confidently stepped forward, smoothly articulating the project's narrative, emphasizing key technical insights as if he'd spent those grueling hours himself. I waited, expecting him to credit me, or at least include me in his narrative. Instead, he smiled broadly as he absorbed praise for my painstaking work. In the immediate aftermath, anger simmered quietly beneath my composed exterior. Colleagues congratulated Jake enthusiastically, assuming his charming facade equaled authentic talent and diligence. I lingered at the back of the room, feeling like a ghost invisible to everyone, my pulse thundering indignantly. Yet, confrontation wasn't my strength. I hesitated, rationalizing it as teamwork, assuring myself credit didn't matter as much as the results we achieved. Still, something gnawed bitterly inside. Weeks passed, but my resentment toward Jake never fully dissipated. I'd maintained professional civility, working alongside him without openly expressing my frustrations, even though his casual confidence grated on me daily. The tipping point came in the form of a cheerful office-wide email from Human Resources. Jake had launched a fundraiser for his participation in a charity marathon, appealing for contributions. His message described his personal dedication and how teamwork and integrity drove him. It felt like salt rubbed deeply into an open wound, given his earlier betrayal of precisely those values. Determinedly, I chose silence, declining to contribute. If he valued teamwork and integrity, shouldn't he exemplify those virtues first? Yet, guilt crept in. I feared appearing petty. But principles mattered deeply to me, and rewarding dishonesty, even indirectly, conflicted profoundly with my values. A week after the fundraiser's kickoff, as I quietly sorted files at my desk, Jake approached casually, leaning against my workspace with practiced nonchalance. "Hey, noticed you haven't pitched in yet," he began, tone deceptively friendly. "We're all in this together, right? Team spirit and all that." His words twisted something inside me. Here's to Jake, demanding generosity after he'd shamelessly claimed my technical effort as his own. My jaw clenched involuntarily, frustration burning behind my composed facade. He continued, his smile persistent yet subtly aggressive. "You know, people notice when someone's not pitching in. Makes it look like you're not really a team player." My frustration swelled, fueled by the unjust accusation embedded in his casual jab. Here was the very person whose duplicity had eroded the meaning of teamwork, now questioning my integrity. My anger surfaced, a slow building wave threatening to spill out, yet I struggled to keep my voice steady, maintaining my professionalism despite the provocation. Overhearing our tense exchange, Sarah, my coworker and a rare genuine ally, stepped from her cubicle to intervene subtly yet firmly. "Jake, not everyone has to contribute publicly to support something good," she said calmly, her eyes meeting mine reassuringly. "Team spirit involves honesty and giving credit where it's due too, doesn't it?" The silence following her words stretched painfully. Jake faltered momentarily, his confident facade cracking slightly, revealing irritation beneath. His smile tightened, realizing his audience had grown skeptical. Sarah's gentle yet pointed intervention sparked murmurs among nearby colleagues who had witnessed the confrontation. For the first time, Jake seemed uncertain, perhaps recognizing that his carefully curated image had begun showing cracks. Emboldened by Sarah's implicit support, I finally decided to take decisive action. Gathering my composure and evidence meticulously documented during the project, I requested a private meeting with management. Calmly yet assertively, I laid out my contributions and subtly indicated Jake's omission of my role. I avoided outright accusation but emphasized the importance of transparency and recognition in our workplace. Management promised to review the issue, their reactions non-committal, leaving me uncertain of the eventual outcome. Relief and anxiety mingled afterward, uncertainty lingering despite having asserted myself. The confrontation felt necessary yet unsettling, knowing workplace dynamics were delicate and unpredictable. Reflecting afterward, frustration and disbelief still lingered. Jake's behavior, his audacity in manipulating perceptions without remorse, confounded me. I wondered how someone could comfortably embrace dishonesty for personal gain without visible discomfort. Was ambition so powerful it could overshadow basic integrity and decency? Perhaps in some environments, charisma and charm overshadowed genuine effort and authenticity. Yet, I stood firm, realizing I'd reclaimed some dignity by not compromising my principles. Even if the outcome remained uncertain, confronting dishonesty felt empowering and necessary. It's honestly laughable how much people romanticize the corporate world, picturing sleek boardrooms and professional camaraderie. But let me tell you, from the gritty frontline trenches of customer support at a trendy tech startup, reality isn't so glamorous. My name's Olivia Morgan, a 27-year-old tech support representative who happens to be visually impaired. Yeah, being visually impaired in a high-paced, visually dependent workplace is exactly as challenging as it sounds, but I've always prided myself on overcoming barriers and proving my capabilities. Assistive technology has been a lifesaver, empowering me to excel where skeptics expected failure. From my adaptive software, translating digital content to Braille, to screen-reading applications guiding me through complex troubleshooting, I've fought tooth and nail for respect in a workplace designed for sighted employees. Despite my dedication, not everyone appreciates the nuances of accessibility. The friction started months ago, subtle at first, coming from Trevor Evans, a sales executive infamous for his entitled bravado. Trevor embodied corporate arrogance, always loud, always entitled, perpetually oblivious to his impact on others. He strutted through the office corridors as if his inflated sales figures rendered him untouchable. While I quietly exceeded performance benchmarks, Trevor dominated office conversations with his supposed wins, downplaying others' efforts and creating friction wherever he went. I knew our paths would clash eventually, but I never imagined it would erupt in such explosive, needless drama. It was an ordinary Tuesday afternoon. I was at my desk, deep in a complicated support ticket, meticulously running diagnostics with my software. The office was bustling as usual, phones ringing and keyboards clattering. Absorbed in my work, I didn't immediately notice Trevor looming behind me. His voice sliced through my concentration, dripping with condescension. Must be nice having all this special treatment. Maybe if I claimed a disability, I'd get to slack off too. His words stopped me cold, disbelief gripping my heart. Heat rose to my cheeks, and I felt the familiar, exhausting surge of anger mixed with embarrassment. Trevor was baiting me publicly, openly accusing me of exploiting my disability for sympathy or preferential treatment. My pulse raced, but I steadied my voice, responding coolly. My performance numbers speak for themselves, Trevor. You'd know if you ever bothered checking. His laugh was dismissive, cruelly mocking my carefully maintained professionalism. Numbers don't mean much when you're playing with loaded dice, he sneered, his tone laced with disdain. Everyone here bends backward so you don't get offended. It's pathetic. Blood pounding in my ears, I struggled to remain composed. This wasn't just workplace drama. It was a public humiliation, calculated to undermine my credibility. But before I could fully process his venomous words, Trevor escalated his antagonism further. Without warning, Trevor leaned across my workstation and casually unplugged the adaptive software connecting my braille display. The sudden silence and loss of my essential tools was jarring, a direct assault on my ability to do my job. The indignity burned deeper than his hateful words ever could. It was like having my lifeline forcibly cut in front of the entire office. The smug satisfaction in his voice as he whispered loud enough for nearby coworkers to hear, "Let's see how you do without your crutch," was absolutely infuriating. My jaw tightened, hands shaking as I fumbled to reconnect my equipment. Humiliation and rage blurred my thoughts. Just then, a strong voice intervened sharply. "Sarah, my closest friend and ally in the workplace." Sarah had witnessed the entire exchange, and her protective instincts flared immediately. She confronted Trevor directly, her voice uncharacteristically fierce and sharp. "What the hell is wrong with you, Trevor? That was completely unacceptable. Olivia deserves respect just like anyone else. You crossed a serious line." The tension was palpable as Sarah's voice echoed across the cubicles, drawing the attention of other employees. Trevor stumbled over his words, clearly taken aback by Sarah's intensity. He weakly attempted to deflect, mumbling about just joking around, but no one bought it. The office was watching, eyes wide in shock and discomfort. Yet, despite Sarah's courageous intervention, my anger didn't subside. Trevor's actions weren't just insensitive, they were discriminatory. He'd violated basic workplace dignity and professionalism, believing he could bully me because of his status and reputation. It was clear now, ignoring Trevor's behavior wasn't an option. I took a deep breath, steadying myself, and resolved to address the issue directly. Gathering my courage, I decided to escalate the incident by officially reporting Trevor to Human Resources. Documenting my complaint felt empowering, yet I couldn't shake the anxiety. The company preached diversity and inclusion, but would they genuinely uphold their values when faced with this internal conflict? As I submitted the formal report, doubt lingered about the outcome. Would management take meaningful action against their golden sales star? Or would my concerns be quietly brushed aside, reinforcing the very injustice I was fighting? Reflecting on Trevor's behavior later, my frustration only intensified. His cruelty wasn't about misunderstanding or ignorance, it was deliberate, an exercise of power rooted in entitlement and insecurity. Trevor's arrogance wasn't just annoying, it was dangerous, perpetuating toxic environments where genuine talent was overshadowed by ego and prejudice. I wondered bitterly how many other capable individuals had quietly suffered under Trevor's ruthless ambition. How many had stayed silent, fearing retaliation? This incident was more than workplace drama. It represented a troubling normalization of bullying masked as harmless banter. But silence wasn't an option anymore. The Trevor Evans of the corporate world represent everything wrong with workplace culture today. This kind of toxic entitlement is exactly why talented people leave good jobs. Companies that turn a blind eye are complicit in maintaining environments where discrimination thrives unchecked. If you've ever dealt with entitled colleagues like Trevor, know you're not alone. And to those watching silently, your voice matters. Speaking out isn't just about protecting yourself. It's about changing a culture that excuses cruelty. Remember, no job is worth losing your dignity. Stand your ground, report misconduct, and hold toxic people accountable. If this resonated, check out my other posts on surviving and thriving despite workplace toxicity. Together, we can shift the narrative and create safer, fairer workplaces for everyone. I've always been the type who tries to blend in quietly at work, diligently completing projects ahead of schedule, maintaining strong relationships with colleagues, and never drawing undue attention. As someone in her late 20s, working as a marketing analyst at a bustling tech company in downtown San Francisco, my career path seemed to be on a steady upward trajectory. My introverted nature and meticulous attention to detail served me well, earning me respect and quiet acknowledgement from management. Even though I preferred working behind the scenes, I secretly yearned for recognition, hoping my hard work would eventually speak for itself. About a year ago, a new hire named Lauren joined our team. Lauren was everything I was not: extroverted, loudly confident, and keenly adept at navigating office politics. She quickly became the darling of the department, charming our supervisor, Mr. Thompson, and forging influential relationships. Initially, I didn't see Lauren as a threat. After all, we were all working toward the same team goals. But as months passed, it became increasingly evident that Lauren viewed the office as a battlefield, each of us pawns in her personal game of career chess. Things began changing subtly at first. Small meetings that I'd typically lead were suddenly reassigned to Lauren. She started taking credit for projects I had initiated and completed. When I gently raised concerns with Mr. Thompson, he brushed them off as harmless misunderstandings. Feeling increasingly sidelined, I decided to double down on my efforts, convinced that hard work and honesty would prevail. The tension reached its peak last month when Mr. Thompson announced a new managerial position. Everyone knew I'd been eyeing this role for years, working tirelessly and positioning myself through significant contributions and dedication. The announcement filled me with excitement and apprehension, knowing that the next few weeks would be crucial. But what I failed to anticipate was Lauren's ruthless determination to seize this opportunity at any cost. One afternoon, as I meticulously compiled an important market analysis report, a task requiring days of painstaking research and number crunching, I noticed Lauren lingering suspiciously near my desk. At first, I brushed it off, focused on finalizing the data that I was sure would clinch my promotion. Little did I realize, Lauren had already hatched a plan. Days passed, and the office hummed with whispers about who would receive the coveted promotion. Determined to stay above the fray, I continued to pour energy into my projects, trusting that my output would speak louder than office gossip. Then came the fateful day when everything unraveled dramatically. I had just finished a particularly grueling presentation for upper management and returned to my desk feeling exhausted yet confident. That's when Lauren approached me with a forced smile, leaning casually against my cubicle. "You know, it's fascinating," she began, her voice dripping with faux sweetness. "How your presentation today closely mirrored my report. Did you honestly think nobody would notice?" My heart sank, and confusion clouded my thoughts. I quickly insisted that the work was entirely mine, meticulously documented and prepared for weeks. But Lauren's smile only widened as she held up a flash drive. "Really? Because I think this little device proves otherwise. Interesting how your data and conclusions match my report exactly, which Mr. Thompson received yesterday." Panic surged through me. Realization dawned. Lauren had stolen my work, passed it off as her own, and now claimed I was the fraud. My attempts to explain fell on deaf ears as co-workers around us watched silently, unwilling to intervene. Humiliation and frustration overwhelmed me as Lauren theatrically declared that she had reported this unethical behavior to Mr. Thompson already. The next few days were nightmarish. I felt isolated, scrutinized by co-workers who'd previously trusted me implicitly. Mr. Thompson called me into his office, questioning my integrity in a tone laced with disappointment. He placed me on administrative probation pending an investigation. Devastated and nearly ready to resign, I withdrew completely, unsure how to salvage my career. Just when I was ready to admit defeat, my close friend and trusted coworker, Maya, stepped in. Having suspected Lauren's manipulations from the start, Maya had quietly documented inconsistencies and collected evidence proving Lauren's pattern of deceit. She boldly presented this evidence to Mr. Thompson, including email timestamps and server logs confirming Lauren's unauthorized access to my work. Maya's courageous intervention threw Lauren's narrative into chaos, exposing her manipulative actions in detail. The office quickly divided into camps, some colleagues outraged by Lauren's deceit, others hesitant, unsure whom to believe. As Mr. Thompson deliberated, tension thickened the air. Days stretched on painfully, each hour amplifying my anxiety. In the end, I made a decisive move. I officially filed a complaint with HR, providing the documented evidence Maya had compiled. The moment I submitted that complaint felt both empowering and terrifying. My future now hung by a thread, uncertain yet hopeful. Though HR assured me they'd thoroughly investigate, the outcome remains uncertain. Lauren, defiantly unapologetic, still occupies her desk as the investigation drags on, her presence a constant reminder of the injustice I've endured. Reflecting now, I still grapple with anger toward Lauren's audacity and the unfairness of office politics. But more than that, I ponder what motivates someone to destroy another's hard work simply for personal gain. Is ambition inherently corrupting? Or did Lauren's own insecurities push her towards sabotage? Either way, this ordeal has irrevocably changed how I view workplace ethics and the lengths people will go to advance their careers. And honestly, how do companies allow toxic behaviors like Lauren's to flourish unchecked? It's infuriating. Workplace ethics shouldn't be negotiable. We all deserve environments where integrity isn't just idealized but actively protected. If you've ever faced anything similar or care about creating healthier workplaces, check out my other stories and discussions about office dynamics and personal integrity. Together, maybe we can finally make honesty the standard, not the exception. I've always been someone who tried to keep a low profile at work. My job, managing digital projects at a marketing firm in Chicago, demanded collaboration and endless patience. But that's never been easy for me. You see, I'm not just shy, I'm selectively mute. I physically can speak, but due to intense social anxiety, I often find myself unable to utter even simple responses during stressful interactions. It's a condition I've dealt with since childhood, and most days, I get by just fine through email, instant messages, and nods of affirmation. My coworkers adapted surprisingly well. Well, most of them anyway. I had worked at Brightwave Marketing for 3 years and was finally on track for a promotion to senior project manager. My boss, Annette, had assured me the job was practically mine if the next big client project went smoothly. Of course, that put immense pressure on me, but I'd spent weeks meticulously coordinating details, ensuring every deliverable was set, every team member prepped. Everything depended on the client presentation scheduled for Thursday. I was stressed but confident. Everything was set, or so I thought. Enter Jared, my coworker and supposedly trusted teammate. Jared had joined the firm 6 months prior, oozing charisma and charm. He was the type who effortlessly commanded any room, a trait that I initially admired and envied in equal measure. I had personally vouched for Jared on several occasions, impressed by how quickly he seemed to grasp our complex workflow. Yet lately, I'd sensed something off, a subtle competitiveness and condescension toward my nonverbal communication methods. Still, I brushed it off, believing Jared's occasional snarky comments were nothing more than playful banter. Thursday morning arrived, and I entered the office early to prepare for the meeting. My meticulous nature had me double-checking every slide, confirming attendees, and rehearsing responses in my head. Jared arrived shortly after, swaggering into the conference room where I was setting up. He looked at me with a smug smirk and casually leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. Something felt instantly wrong. As I was running through the presentation notes, Jared cleared his throat dramatically and said, loud enough for anyone nearby to hear, "Must be nice to coast through work, never having to speak up and defend your ideas." The provocative jab caught me completely off guard. My heart pounded in my chest, and I felt my throat tightening. Before I could even react or gather the courage to respond, Jared continued, "Honestly, it's ridiculous you're even up for a promotion. Anyone can hide behind emails." His words were sharp, purposeful daggers meant to undermine me. The blood drained from my face as embarrassment and anger washed over me. Here I was, working overtime, obsessing over every detail, only to have my credibility openly attacked. The anxiety gripping my throat intensified, making any response impossible. My silence seemed to embolden Jared even further, who took my silence as confirmation of weakness. "Don't worry," he said with exaggerated kindness. "I'll take care of things when you inevitably freeze." The presentation began an hour later, and despite my shaken confidence, I tried to refocus. Things started smoothly until Jared inexplicably took control midway through, contradicting my carefully prepared points and steering the conversation into chaos. He intentionally introduced confusing alternatives, undermined our strategy, and subtly placed the blame for confusion squarely at my feet, implying my silent demeanor was at fault for the miscommunication. The clients looked uncomfortable and confused, the presentation spiraling into disaster. Suddenly, the room's atmosphere shifted as Emily, my close friend and fellow project coordinator, intervened sharply. She cut Jared off, calmly yet firmly correcting misinformation and redirecting focus back onto our original, carefully prepared strategy. Emily skillfully navigated the conversation, clarifying each point with precision, her confidence restoring some balance. Jared, visibly irritated, slumped back into his chair, his manipulative tactics exposed. After the disastrous presentation, Emily approached me privately, her eyes filled with anger and sympathy. She revealed Jared had been openly campaigning behind my back, spreading rumors that my condition made me unreliable and unsuited for leadership roles. The realization cut deep. Jared wasn't just opportunistic. He was actively trying to sabotage me to secure the promotion for himself. With Emily's support, I made the difficult decision to formally report Jared to Human Resources, documenting every incident meticulously. Yet, uncertainty lingered. Would my selective mutism and Jared's manipulations convince management that I was indeed incapable? Would justice prevail, or would Jared's calculated charm win out? In the end, HR assured me they'd investigate thoroughly. Jared was placed under temporary suspension, pending further review. Though I was relieved, the resolution remained painfully uncertain. My promotion now seemed distant, overshadowed by this drama. Yet, I felt strangely liberated for standing up for myself, even silently. Reflecting now, I recognize Jared's betrayal as a disturbing lesson in professional ethics. His behavior revealed an ugly truth: charisma can mask profound insecurity and ruthless ambition. His willingness to exploit my selective mutism didn't just highlight his cruelty, it illuminated society's broader misconceptions about communication and capability. Jared saw my silence as weakness, but I now see it differently. Silence can be powerful, thoughtful, and intentional. Jared chose manipulation, I chose integrity. Even if the outcome remains uncertain, I refuse to be ashamed of who I am or how I communicate. The betrayal stung, but it also clarified exactly what kind of person I refuse to become. And honestly, situations like this highlight exactly why ethics training should be mandatory in workplaces. I've seen enough corporate backstabbing for one lifetime. It's shocking how many workplaces still reward manipulative behavior disguised as assertiveness or leadership. If you face similar betrayals or have thoughts on how companies should handle these toxic situations, drop your experiences in the comments below. And if you found this story relatable, consider subscribing for more brutally honest takes on workplace drama. I've never been particularly good at fitting in. Growing up, I was always a bit different. Maybe it was my incessant fascination with obscure historical facts or the way I tended to hyper-focus on tasks to the exclusion of everything around me. Diagnosed with high-functioning autism at 15, I quickly realized the world operated on a set of unspoken rules that everyone else seemed to inherently grasp, but which were a complete mystery to me. Social interactions often felt like intricate puzzles, pieces scattered everywhere, waiting for me to put them together incorrectly. By the time I reached my mid-20s, I'd grown accustomed to life on the periphery. Colleagues came and went without me noticing much difference. I worked as an analyst at a mid-sized marketing firm, one of those jobs where everyone buzzed around in trendy clothes, exchanging inside jokes and weekend stories. Meanwhile, my desk, neatly stacked with color-coded files and meticulously arranged stationery, was an island of silent order amidst the noisy chaos. I wasn't disliked exactly, I was just invisible. Except when someone needed detailed data analysis overnight, that's when I suddenly became visible again, essential, even temporarily admired. Everything changed one rainy Tuesday afternoon. I just returned to my desk with my usual coffee, carefully measured and brewed at precisely the right temperature, ready to dive into the comforting world of spreadsheets. But something was off. My chair had been adjusted, files were scattered, and worst of all, my prized antique fountain pen, a graduation gift from my father, lay uncapped, its nib bent grotesquely. A pulse of anger and confusion surged through me. Who would do this? As I struggled to regain my composure, footsteps approached my cubicle. It was Adam, the charming, ambitious project lead who seemed to glide effortlessly through office politics. His clothes were always impeccably tailored, his smile always strategically placed. He leaned casually against my partition, arms folded arrogantly, eyes glinting with some dark amusement. "Oh hey," he drawled, sarcasm dripping from every syllable. "I figured you'd appreciate a little chaos. Might make you more human, you know?" I froze. Adam had always seemed indifferent towards me, dismissive, but never outright hostile. Yet here he was, openly mocking me, his tone deliberately provocative, challenging me to react. But confrontation was something I avoided at all costs. I shrank further into myself, silently seething. Noticing my discomfort, he pressed further. "Seriously though, this whole robot routine you've got going, it creeps everyone out. I just wanted to see if you even noticed when someone messed with your stuff. Honestly, it's pathetic how predictable you are." I felt my pulse quicken, anger flaring beneath my carefully maintained composure. I wanted to shout, to fight back, to defend myself. But words failed me. They always had. I stared at the damaged pen, feeling deeply violated. Adam chuckled cruelly, clearly enjoying my silence as victory. Just when I thought the situation couldn't escalate further, Adam reached casually towards my meticulously organized files and, with deliberate malice, knocked them carelessly to the ground. Pages fluttered around my feet, my weeks of careful organization destroyed in seconds. "Maybe that'll loosen you up," he sneered, turning to leave, satisfied he'd proven some obscure point. My vision blurred slightly, adrenaline mixing dangerously with anxiety. As my chest tightened painfully, Jenna, my only genuine ally in the office, a bubbly, outgoing graphic designer who'd somehow seen through my awkward exterior, appeared at the entrance to my cubicle. She'd overheard everything. "Adam, what the hell?" Jenna snapped, her normally cheerful face flushed with righteous fury. "You think harassing people makes you cool or something? Grow up." Adam paused, surprised at her sudden interruption. He clearly hadn't anticipated anyone coming to my defense. "Oh, come on, Jenna," he scoffed dismissively. "It's just harmless fun. Besides, it's not like our resident robot has feelings." "Harmless fun," Jenna retorted sharply, stepping fully into the cubicle, placing herself firmly between Adam and me. "You're being a bully, plain and simple. And it's disgusting." Her voice trembled slightly, a mixture of anger and genuine hurt. Jenna, who typically avoided conflict, was openly confronting the office golden boy. Adam's expression faltered, uncertain for the first time, his carefully constructed persona showing cracks. I felt a wave of courage bolstered by Jenna's defense. Without hesitation, I rose slowly from my seat, gathering my courage and my voice. "You don't get to decide how human I am, Adam," I said, my voice steadier than I'd ever expected. "Just because I don't interact the way you do doesn't mean I deserve this treatment. I won't accept it." A heavy silence followed my words, as the office around us had become an audience to our drama. Adam, embarrassed and exposed, muttered something incoherent, retreated hastily, and disappeared down the hall. Despite Jenna's supportive smile, the aftermath was uncertain. I filed an official complaint with HR, unsure if it would be taken seriously or if Adam's charm would save him once again. But for the first time, I felt seen. Not as the office oddball, but as someone who stood their ground against cruelty. Reflecting later, I couldn't help but think about Adam's behavior. Was he genuinely malicious, or was his cruelty born from insecurity masked by charm? Either way, his actions were inexcusable. Nobody should have to endure humiliation simply because they're perceived as different. This incident highlighted a disturbing truth too often. Charisma shields toxicity, and conformity punishes authenticity. Society needs to question these dynamics. No one should apologize for who they are. By the way, if you faced similar bullying at work, check out my latest video on workplace ethics and surviving toxic colleagues. Let's break this harmful cycle together, because standing up once can make you the hero in your own story.